B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh v'Natzliach. Welcome everyone to our lecture called How to Take the Mask Off. First of all, Potchin Bichvot Achsanya, as we say, we always have to start anything in the honor of the hosts. So I want to special thank you to the Mehrdad family for opening their home to us and having everybody here. Thank you so much. And a special thanks goes to those that ran the whole thing from the beginning to the end. I had nothing to do with setting anything up, finding the place, the topic. It was all due to a bunch of girls just like many here. Shana, Leah, who else? Am I missing anybody? Omid, as always. Why not? You know, just throw an Omid in there. Why not? Yeah. Thanks everyone for being involved. Okay. I appreciate everyone being here. The subject tonight is in fact a very sensitive subject. It's something that we deal with on a daily basis in our lives, especially I would say more so even in our modern time. Things that happen around us. With all the science that is around us, it even makes it even harder. So the topic that was chosen, not by me, by those that like to make things hard on me, is the topic is how to take the mask off. Meaning, I thought this is what they meant, so this is what I'm going with. So don't change the subject. What they meant was, how do you see God in a hidden world? Did I get it? Yeah, I got it. Yeah, that was it. How do you see Hashem in our modern world, in everything that happens around us? How do you find HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How do you see the work of God? This is a perfect subject because next week, Bezrat Hashem, is Purim, the holiday of Purim. Very special holiday. So special, in fact, that Chachamim tell us that when Moshiach comes, all the holidays, including Pesach, will no longer be celebrated. Including Pesach. Imagine, we exited from, the entire Jewish nation revolves around the exodus from Egypt. Moshiach comes, we will no longer have Pesach. Why? Because we're going to now celebrate the exodus from the last galut, the last exile, being here with Moshiach. So all the other holidays also are going to be obsolete, except for one, Purim. Even though Purim is not a holiday from the Torah, it was a holiday that was instituted by the Nevi'im and the Chachamim, by the sages. However, it is a holiday that we will have even when Moshiach comes. So there is something about Purim that other holidays, so to speak, don't have. So much so that even when Moshiach comes, we go to Olam Haba, to a new world, new age with Moshiach the King. We're still going to have people wearing costumes once a year, drinking, having that wonderful meal, and giving praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So let's start from the beginning. What is Purim? What happened? So allow me to take you through just a glimpse of what we know so far of what Purim was, what happened. There is a king. His name is, in English, I have no idea for the life of me. I cannot pronounce his name in English. So you call him whatever you want. Because every time I try to do it, it's like, okay, I'll try. His name in English is Hashirisis. Well, they want to simplify, so they call him Xerxes. But that's not his name. It's not anything in English they don't know how to pronounce. They put a couple of X's in there. That's what it is. Xerxes, right? But his real name was Achashverosh, or he was Persian, right? So we'll call him by his Persian name, which was Chashayarsha, right? But his real name, in fact, was Achashverosh, right? We Persians call him Chashayarsha, which is much closer to the real name. I don't know where Hesses came from. Whatever. This king decides he's going to have a party. We're not even going to get into why he's having a party. That's a different story on its own. But he's having a party and he's inviting all dignitaries from all around the world. Now, at this point in time, Achashverosh leads the world, rules the world. Most of the world is under his command. He is the biggest, yet the smallest king there is. He's the biggest because he controls most of the world at the time. He's the smallest because he's not really a king. So he has a power rush. He's constantly paranoid about proving that I am a king, I am great, no one can take things away from me. So Achashverosh has this huge party. And at this party, everyone's drinking, everyone's merry, and it's a long party. It's days and days and days. Achashverosh at this party himself gets completely drunk. Interesting though, is that it was against the law for anyone to get drunk. It says that in the Megillah itself. The Megillat Esther says that Achashverosh made a rule, everyone drinks wine to their limit. Meaning, he wanted everyone to have an amazing time. No one has a good time when they get drunk. Well, once you're drunk, not that anybody here knows what that even feels like. I don't even know this is what I've heard about getting drunk, is that once you get to a point where you're drunk, you're no longer having fun, right? Fun is when you have that buzz, where you've perfectly reached that moment where you've just had enough and you're merry and you're having a good time, you're laughing at everything, everything's funny, life is great, and everything the rabbi is saying is beautiful and wonderful. That's where Achashverosh wanted everyone to be. So he made a rule. No one goes overboard. No one gets drunk. Because we're going to have so many days of partying, I don't want anybody to feel sick. I want everyone to have a great time at the entire party. However, he himself gets really wasted. So much so that he orders his wife to do something incredibly crazy and come and dance in front of all the dignitaries. Now, this is the Queen of Persia. Today, you can't even compare the Queen of Persia to anybody in the world today. Who are you going to, maybe Queen Elizabeth, something like that. I mean, I've never witnessed them in person, but I mean, royalty is royalty. Imagine having the queen, the king saying, come and dance in front of everyone, and make everyone, entertain people. So the queen says, no, I'm not doing it. What does he do? Loses his mind, and he orders her killed. So the Queen of Persia is no longer, she's dead. He kills him. He has her killed. Her name was Vashti. Vashti dies. Now, just a little point here. The Gemara names a few people in history, a few women in history that were known to be the most beautiful women that ever lived. Now, if the Talmud says these were the most beautiful women that ever lived, this is not the GQ magazine going according to the times of what beautiful is. If the Talmud says they were beautiful, it means all time they had all the features. One of the women named in the Talmud is actually Vashti. Vashti was one of the most beautiful women ever lived, compared to Sarai Menu. That's another name, our matriarch Sarah. The Gemara says Sarai Menu was one of the most beautiful women, and it says Vashti was also one of the most beautiful women. Why lie about it? She was gorgeous. He gets her killed. Afterwards, when he sobers up, oy vey. He starts rethinking, what did I do? What happened? What are we going to do? He's all depressed, and he calls his assistants, what are we going to do? And one of them suggests, gather all the women and have a contest. You choose whichever woman you want, most beautiful. And he says, that's a wonderful idea. That's all I needed. Right? And he decides they're going to have a contest. I'm sure you've seen these in cartoons and movies and stuff like that. It actually happened once. A king actually did this. There's a contest, who's going to be the next queen? How bored do you have to be? So Achashverosh makes this contest to bring all the women, and he says no to every single one of them. Mordechai brings his niece, Esther. Esther comes before Achashverosh, and Achashverosh falls head over heels for Esther. So far, so good. This is information everybody already knows. I know I'm building something. Give me a chance, Gabby. I don't know where that came from. You need help. What happens? He chooses Esther. The Talmud, Megillat, Masechet Megillah also says, Esther Hamalka, Queen Esther, in fact, was not beautiful. In fact, how old was she when Ahasuerus chose her as the queen? Take a guess.
12.
70 years old. 70. 70. Esther was 70 years old. And in fact, the Talmud says she had a green complexion, like a sickly looking complexion. She was not beautiful. She was not young. Yet Achashverosh wanted to give her the entire kingdom. Like, take it. And he says a few times in the Megillah, you read in the Megillah, he says, until a half of my entire kingdom, I will give to you. Just ask for it. And Esther does not reveal where she comes from, who she is. She Jewish, she's not. He doesn't care. He's got a queen in his home, clueless about who she is, loves her to death, will give anything for her. She does not talk to him about anything where she's from. And she literally has him on her little pinky. So far, so good. All the women are like, yeah, so good, right? This is what she's doing so far in the Megillah. At this time, around the same time, Mordechai, who was a head of the court, of the Jewish court, is hanging around the palace, and he overhears two soldiers plotting to kill the king, Achashverosh. Once again, I'll say it. Mordechai is hanging around the palace, and he happens to overhear two soldiers plotting to kill the king. Where does he go? Straight to Esther. Sends news to Esther. Someone's trying to kill your husband, the king. Esther gives the news to Mordechai, gives the news to Achashverosh, and quotes Mordechai as saying, this news came to me by Mordechai, and he said these two people are trying to kill you. And he tests them, and he finds out it was true. They were trying to kill him, and he kills them. And this is written in his book of memory, so to speak, like a diary. Mordechai HaYehudi, the Jew, on this and this date, saved the king's life. Now, why was Mordechai hanging around the palace? It just so happened that Mordechai at the time was a general in Achashverosh's army. He was actually a very high-ranked general. So he was no stranger to being around the king. That happens. He writes in his book. After which, Haman comes to the story. He starts plotting to annihilate the Jews. Mordechai, Achashverosh, on the other hand, has no problem with it at all. He's in fact happy. In fact, Achashverosh hated the Jews. The Chachamim say he hated the Jews more than Haman did. But he was too afraid, because he wasn't stupid. He knew what happened to the previous kings that messed around with the Jews. So he didn't want to mess around with them. But Haman comes up with a plan and he says, listen, they're not the same anymore. They're spread apart. They're all over the place. They're not practicing what they used to practice. Everyone's doing their own thing. This is the time. 'Tis the season. We can do this. Right? I'm using that terminology in a different place. And this is the time. We got to do it. So Achashverosh takes his ring off, gives it to Haman, and says, do as you will. This taking off the ring of Achashverosh to Haman was one of the greatest to-be catastrophes of the Jewish nation ever. Taking off a ring of a king and giving it to somebody else basically means you have the right to stamp any command you want. I won't question you. Do whatever it is you want. You want to kill the Jews, you want to kill gypsies, whatever you choose. It's up to you. Do it. I'm not even going to ask. So Haman becomes the most powerful person, second in command to the king of Persia. He goes from being a stable boy, which he was, to being one of the greatest, most powerful people and the worst enemy the Jews have ever known. Let's fast forward the story. One night, the king has trouble sleeping. Just so happens to have trouble sleeping. And he says to his scribe, he says, listen, bring me my book of memories. Read it to me. Maybe I'll get bored and I'll go to sleep. I'll get tired. Right? So he comes and he starts reading his memories and diary. And he says, on so-and-so date, I'm not even going to give you the details of what really went on here. He says, on so-and-so date, Mordechai HaYehudi, Mordechai the Jew, saved your life. The king says, oh, back up a second. Just to... Back up! Did I ever repay Mordechai for what he did? So the scribe says, in fact, no, it's not checked off in your book. He says, that's strange. I usually repay these people that saved my life. I never did it for this guy. What should I do? At the same time, just so happens that Haman is strolling in the king's palace. And he looks out and he says, hey, who's in the garden? And they go, it's Haman. He says, bring him in here. Perfect. Now, just to give you a little inside information, because Achashverosh was very, very paranoid, he was thinking that Haman wants to kill him and take Esther for himself. This is where Achashverosh's mind was at this time. Right? Now, a lot of the story is going to make a lot more sense to a lot of you. He was thinking that Haman wants to get rid of him and marry Esther and become the king. So what does he do? He calls Haman in. Now watch how much more sense this episode makes to you. He says to Haman, let me ask you something, Haman. How would you repay somebody that has done you so many favors and has been so great to you? What would you do for them? What great gift would you give them? He wanted to know what Haman's going to say. He's not mentioned any names. The Megillah says, Haman thought to himself, who would he want to do this for? It's me. He wants to do this for me. He means me. So what does Haman say? Haman says, I would dress him up in the royal garb with the crown, put him on the king's horse, and take him down the street and announce before him, this is how the king repays those that do favors for him. What is the king thinking at this moment? I was right. He wants my crown. He wants my clothes. I was right the whole time. This guy's after me. This is what he wants. So what does the king do? He pulls a Persian. He goes, perfect. Do that for Mordechai, you. Perfect. He goes, do it. Do exactly what you said. Don't miss a thing. Do it for Mordechai pesos. He literally gives him a burn. He says, exactly what you said, do for Mordechai. And now the tables are turned. Haman takes Mordechai into the street, puts him on a horse. Haman hates Mordechai. He wants to get rid of him. He wants to annihilate the Jews just because of Mordechai. Now he's riding out into the street with him. Fast forward the story. It ends up that because of the favor that Mordechai did, and because Esther, Baruch Hashem, was the queen, they were able to change the plans of the king, and the Jews were not annihilated. They killed Haman, and all of the enemies that wanted to attack the Jews were taken care of. That is the story as we know it, in a nutshell, a big nutshell. Became a little longer than I thought, but that's the story of Purim. If I would ask you, how long do you think all of this took? We read Megillat Esther once a year. How long did the story of Esther and Mordechai and Haman take? Ballpark, throw a number.
13.
What did you say, 9, 13?
No, 13 years.
13 years? No. What? A little less than that. But most people think they go like 6 months, 5 months. It took a long time. Do you think people that were living in Persia at the time, especially the Jews living at that time, do you think they were thinking the entire time, wow, look at the master plan here. Look, hey, Mordechai is walking around the palace and he found out that the king was about to get killed. Oh, look, the king chose Esther. Of course he chose Esther. No one was thinking that. Maybe some. But many people were not. I want to tell you something interesting. There's a halakha. I know this about the Sephardim. I don't know about the Ashkenazic halakha. But the halakha for Sephardim is as follows. When you want to read the Megillah on Purim, the person, the Chazan that takes the Megillah scroll to read it on Purim, there's one halakha that he has to follow. This is the best way to do it. You can't imagine you have a scroll, right? The Megillah is written in a scroll. It's like one scroll. You have 2 ways of doing it. You can just open it, read, and as you're reading each page, each column, you go further. But the halakha is you don't do that. You have, which is very difficult actually. You have to open the entire scroll, unravel the whole thing, and then leave it on the bima, on the table, and then page by page, as you go, you just take it and you just put it down and you read each column. Why? I always had this question. Hacham Ovadia brings this in the halakha and says the best way to do it, you need to open the entire igeret. The entire scroll, the storyline has to be open before you, and then you take page by page. You can't just unroll as you go, which would have been very, very simple. I don't know if you guys have been on top of the bima when the chazan is, it's very difficult. He has to open it, and it's written on parchment, so they keep unraveling and they keep falling down, and it's like a whole mess up there. But you have to do it like this. Why? I always had this question, and my question was answered, and born from that was the speech that I'm giving you tonight. It is very easy to go through time and see timeline as a bunch of coincidences. Because you're in it. When you're in something, you don't recognize the master plan because you're in it. You're in the middle of it. You don't know what's happening necessarily before it. You don't know what's happening afterwards. You're in a timeline and you have no clue why anything is happening. It's just happening. Sometimes what happens is if you're paying attention, if you're really paying attention, 20 years, 30 years down the line, you look back and go, okay, that thing that happened 20 years ago, now I see what just happened. It'll like click. The story of Purim was the same exact thing. People that were living at the time didn't see all the miracles that was happening around them, except Mordechai. Esther Amalka tells Mordechai, when Mordechai hears that Haman wants to kill all the Jews, he wears sackcloth and he's sitting in the street. Esther sends him brand new clothes and tells the messenger, tell Mordechai, stop mourning, wear new clothes, come to the palace. What's going on? So he says, haven't you heard? Haman wants to annihilate the Jews. What does Esther say? Why don't I let the Jews relax? I'll talk to the king. No, maybe at the right time I'll go talk to the king. It's going to be okay. Mordechai turns to Esther and says, what? He says, whoa. Are you really do you really think that you became the queen just by chance? And this is just by coincidence? So you're getting comfortable in this little act of yours? Wake up. The only reason you're there is because of what's happening now. This was planned from before. Listen to what Mordechai tells Esther. If you don't do something now, Hashem will choose someone else instead of you. It will happen by someone else's hands. Which means what? You were placed where you are for a reason. This is your reason. If you don't act on it now, someone's just going to get rid of you. Everything has a master plan. Mordechai saw the entire thing. The entire story of Purim, when you read it, you're like, wow, it's beautiful. Look how the king killed his own queen. Then he chose Esther. It's like a political frenzy. Right? Like, Baruch Hashem, we had a Jewish queen. That's why the Jews were saved. No. It's the other way around. We needed the Jews to be saved. So what does Hashem do? He gets the king drunk against his own rules. Then he kills his own queen. And he chooses a queen that's against everything anyone expected. She's not pretty. She's not young. Coincidence? I don't think so. He chooses Esther as the queen. And as the timeline goes by, you'll just see freakishly accidents happening one after the other. But you don't see it when it's happening. Why? Because many people say, oh, it was politics, or it was this, or it was that. You will only see it once the entire scroll is written. And then you open the entire scroll in front of you like a Kadosh Baruch Hu. He sees the entire story already unfolded from above as he's putting everything in place. When you open the entire Megillat Esther and you take a step back and you see the entire story, you go, wow, the story of Purim is the miracle of all miracles. Because you know the beginning and you know the end. Our entire life is a story of Purim. It's just that we don't know the beginning and we don't know the end. But to think that things happen by chance is a huge mistake. Just like it would have been a mistake if the Jews would not believe Mordechai at that time. Imagine a scroll being written about our times. Would you want to be the one that's talked about as, she didn't get the hint, or he didn't get the message? It was right in their eyes, right before their eyes. Like, it's easy for you to say. Like right now, when we read the Megillah, we go, come on, didn't the Jews see what's going on? Like, seriously? No, they didn't. For them they were thinking, the king's having a party. It's not nice not to go to the party. Zeshte, like it's not, the king is having a party. Mordechai on the other side is like, the king's having a party because he's celebrating our exile. We shouldn't go to this party. But the Jews on the other hand were like, no, we got personal invitation. It's not nice. We have to reply on time and then be late 3 hours. We have to go. Yeah. They were not looking at it like Mordechai was looking at it. And that's our entire life. We have to look at our entire life like a Megillat Esther. Everything. Open the scroll in your mind. Everything you go through in life. Say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is planning something. I don't know what it is, but I'm a part of it. Sometimes you're happy about it. Sometimes you're not. But at the end of the day, imagine something, will you? Imagine if you were going through a very, very dark tunnel and you had no idea what is around you. There's noises coming, you're afraid, there's danger lurking from every corner. You have no idea what's happening around you. You get a tap on the shoulder, right? And somebody's wearing a mask. Just imagine. This is a little bit, but just imagine. This is my way of looking at it. He takes off the mask for a second and he says, it's me, God. Trust me. I got you. Go. Will you be afraid anymore? You'll go through the tunnel like you'll be singing. Because the entire time you know, I got God right here. He told me everything's going to be fine. It's very dark. It's very scary. It's crazy. I'm afraid. But he told me just keep going. So I'm going to keep going. Would you second guess it for a second? You know it's God. You wouldn't second guess it. That is our life every minute. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is wearing a mask. He's hidden. How do we know he's hidden? Because the story of Esther happened at a time when Hashem in the Torah said, there will come a time, V'anochi aster astir et panai. There will come a time that I will hide my face from you. I will no longer show you myself clearly. I will no longer do clear miracles. No more open miracles. Everything's going to happen through nature or politics. Everything's going to happen a way where you think like, oh, it's the corporations, it's this, it's Russia now, it's the next thing is that. But trust me, one day you're going to take a step back and you're going to be like, oh my God, look at what happened. Look at how HaKadosh Baruch Hu planned everything from 30 years before. That's Hashem telling you, hey, it's the tap on the shoulders telling you, I'm here, just keep going. I'm here every minute of the way, every second of the way, but I'm not going to show myself to you. And I'll explain that to you as well. David HaMelech says, David HaMelech in his wisdom says, if you look at the skies, you see the stars and the galaxies. Listen to this, David HaMelech. I think it's the most poetic thing ever. I mean, I don't think there's any better poet than David HaMelech, ever. But this always touched me. David HaMelech says, when you look at the skies and you see the stars, you have to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu's orchestra. It's a perfect, perfect symphony. Everything works perfectly together. You are just a speck of dust in all of this. We are nothing in this magnificent world of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You know, do you know how many galaxies, how many worlds there are? You know how many stars exist? You know how lost we are in this entire big universe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and everything works perfectly together. That's like a beautiful symphony. The sun knows when to come up, the moon knows when to show itself. Everything works perfectly. And David HaMelech says, Chaval, it's sad if a human being does not see this beautiful symphony. If you look up to heaven and you don't see the perfection of the universe around you, you're not looking. You're not seeing what you should be seeing. Sometimes, when things get a little tough, whether it's around us or in a distance, far, countries, wherever it is, we will ask, where is Hashem? Where is God? It's one of the greatest questions unanswered, I should say, about the Holocaust. Where was God? Where is Hashem? Why is there such things happening in the world around us? There was a Rebbe that was watching his grandson play hide and seek outside with the other kids in the street. And he takes his mind off of him for a few minutes and comes back and he sees his grandson is in the house and he's crying. Takes him aside and he says, why are you crying? He says, cause nothing, it's okay. He says, no, tell me, what happened? You were playing with your friends. Why are you crying? He says, because I was playing hide and seek and they're not playing right with me. He says, why? Were they giving up where you were hiding? He says, no. He says, so what did he do? He says to them, I hid. And I was hiding for a long time, but no one came to look for me. They all just gave up, and I was just left there. The Rebbe hears this, and he starts to cry. And his grandson looks up and says, Zaidi, why are you crying? He says, you just answered a question for me. We always ask, God, where are you? Hashem, where are you? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is just like you, hiding. And he cries every day and he says, no one comes to look for me. No one's really coming to seek me out. Where are my children that ask for me? Why don't you come find me? So the next time we ask this question of ourselves, where is God? Ask yourself this question, what is God asking? Most of the time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, where are you? I want to be found. I want you to find me, but you're not looking right. You're not looking for me. You look at everything in the wrong way. Every single time I give you a little hint, you don't see that it's me. I'm trying to help you find me, but you're not. Every moment of our day is a miracle. We have to give Shevach La'el every second of our lives. We wake up every single morning. I know this is a little like... Every morning we wake up and we can breathe. Our lungs work. Our limbs work. We have to give Shevach La'el. We have to give thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is the greatest miracle that everything begins to work simultaneously, without a glitch. You wake up one morning with a stiff back or a stiff neck, you'll be reminded that sometimes some things might not work perfectly for a while. So you thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu every day that it does. I want to share with you guys a personal story of mine that I think really brings out this point. Gabby, is this still, we're good?
Yeah.
Little while back, I don't want to tell you how many years ago, go figure. It was about 10 years ago, I was 18. And I decided with all of my friends, and I tell you with all of my friends, it was literally all of my friends, to go on a birthright trip. Who doesn't want to go on a birthright? And it would have been my first time going to Eretz Israel. It was my dream. I cannot tell you how much of a dream this was. Let me just explain to you how much of a dream this was for me. When I came, I immigrated from Iran to the United States with my parents. Make a long story short, my paperwork got lost in immigration. So I did not have a green card for a long time when everybody else was already a citizen. I didn't even have a green card. So it took a long time for me to be able to even travel. And it had become my dream so that when I finally am able to get a passport to go to Israel. Instead I had friends of mine telling me, let's go here, let's go there. I'm like, I'm not moving until I go to Israel. My dream is to go to Eretz Israel. Comes time and everything is working out. I've already registered. I've already, paid for a passport and I've expedited all of that stuff. And I'm signed up for a birthright trip. And the birthright trip I was signed up on, most of you here probably went on the same exact one. Just not going to say the name, but it's that one. And I was signed up for the same exact one with all of my friends from the community. Comes like 2 weeks before it. The head of the trip calls me, goes, okay, everything ready? I'm like, yeah, I got everything. I'm just waiting for my passport. It's on the way. I have the tracking number, everything. It's come. A week, good. No, passport not here yet, but I have the tracking number. It's supposed to be, it's the day. Right? We're going. All my friends are like, dude, you're coming? I'm like, I'm coming. We're going. I'm just waiting for my passport. Day before the trip, they call me. They go, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. My passport's not here yet. So they don't know what to do. They have to take my name off of the list. We're really sorry. We hope you can join us next time. My passport does not arrive. The day of the flight, my passport does not arrive. All of my friends on the same exact flight, I kid you not, they all went to Israel. They were calling me from the plane. Like, oh, we miss you. Some of them were crying. Like, it was like a very big deal. Like, oh my God, we can't believe this happened to you. We wish we could be together. And that was only on the flight. 2 days later, they didn't even call me anymore. Let's just put it that way. Everyone was having an amazing time being in the Bedouin tents and like, right? They all go. The flight leaves. The next day, my passport comes in the mail. The day after the flight. I never forget. I kid you not. I do not forget. I was standing by my mailbox as I'm holding the expedite package in my mailbox with the passport in it. And I'm looking up. I'm going, is this a joke? Like, is this funny? What is this? Like, I was literally stuck. I was like, seriously? Like, the day after, give me 5 days after the flight so that I'll be like, oh, it was going to be so late. The day after the flight? Like, what are you trying to smack me in the face? Like, watch this. Watch, you're going to laugh. Watch. Like, you can imagine like HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all the angels and like, hey, watch this redhead dude. Watch. Watch what happens to this Gingy, like when he opens the mailbox. Right? It really, to me, that's how it was. I really felt like some crazy things happening. I was so broken. And I was more broken because they were having so much fun. And I was just stuck going to work every day.
He pulled a Moshe Rabbeinu.
What?
He pulled a Moshe Rabbeinu.
He pulled a Moshe Rabbeinu. So fast forward, I was still very like heartbroken. All those friends come back. They all have memories. They all have things they talk about all the time, which I have no connection to. Some of them I even got into fights because of it. You know, I was like, there was definitely a distance that was built between us because like we didn't share that same experience. Time goes on. Next year comes. And all of a sudden, I get contacted by someone from the community about a trip to Israel, not Birthright. It's a whole different kind of a trip. It's an organized trip. Instead of 10 days, it's 2 weeks. And it's, I got no more friends going to Israel. I didn't have anybody to go with. But one person from the community, one of the guys who was actually older than me, however, we knew each other. We were kind of friendly at the time already. We were already becoming more of friends in the community at the time. We decided, you know what, we'll go together. He's like, let's go, So we end up going on this trip together. A 2-week trip. From that trip, so many great things came out of that trip. Number one is that friend of mine, because we went together on that trip, I can't say exactly how, he got married, he's got kids now, Baruch Hashem. He got married before I did. We became the greatest of friends, inseparable. Okay? I am here standing before you today. What I do today, outreach and the rabbinate, all that stuff I owe to those 2 weeks in Israel. To that trip in Israel. I can tell you, guaranteed, if I was on that Birthright trip with that group of friends, I would not be here right now. I don't know where I would be, maybe in business someplace, but I would not be doing what I'm doing today. Guaranteed. Everybody else that went on that trip, I have almost no connection to anymore. I totally found a whole new life for myself. Going back now to my mailbox where I was standing and I was looking up, is this a joke? I could hear HaKadosh Baruch Hu telling me, no, it's not. It hurts me more than it hurts you, but just give it a while. Trust me. It was that tap on the shoulder that I never felt. Of Hashem telling me, listen, I'm right here. Trust me, you have no idea what I have planned for you. This is just not you. This is not your thing. If only we could hear that in every decision that we made and just went nowhere. And in every wish that we had that we was not granted. If we could hear that voice that Hashem says, I'm really sorry, but no. I have something else planned for you. You know how much of a happier life a person would lead if we just understood that everything happens And HaKadosh Baruch Hu's running the show just so that you will find what He knows would be best for you. And I'm not exaggerating with you. It's a 2-week trip to Israel, might not be a big deal for a lot of people. But for me, it was a life changer forever. I mean, it was that trip that I decided to go to. The next year after that, I went back to Israel for 2 years, where I studied to do what I do now. If it wasn't because of that trip, I would have never have met the people to inspire me to do it. I am married. Everything that happened in my life just happened for missing a passport by 1 day. And maybe if it wasn't 1 day, it wouldn't have hit me so hard for me to recognize the miracle that happened for me. I think it was Hashem's way of saying, I want to make you miss the flight by 1 day, your passport by 1 day, because I want you to come back to this moment and be like, you know why you missed it for 1 day? Because this is why you missed it. 1 day, by 1 day. This is it. This is really what happened in my life. And I've seen so many things like this in my own life and other people's lives that have changed a person's life forever. What would have happened to me if I would have gone on that flight? I have no idea. Definitely would not have made the decision I made today. Purim is the prime example that Hashem is with us every second of the way. We just have to see Him. We have to choose to want to look for Him. We have to choose to see Him. Yes, sometimes it gets upsetting. Sometimes you get mad at the entire world, like I did. It's funny, I cannot tell you. I was going through my old files today. I was looking for some things. And I was going through old files in my external drive. It's the funniest thing. I haven't seen these files in years. And I found a Purim, 1 year Purim, pictures and videos from a long time ago. 1 year. And I saw myself, the friends I was with, the things I was doing in that Purim. And I literally went 1 year over to the next folder. And it was right after I had made the decision to go back to Israel. And I was a different person. I saw these files today. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, look at the difference. The person I became in 1 year. 1 year I was here celebrating Purim with all these guys and these guys doing the things I was doing, whatever it was. And then the next year I'm in a different place. And the year after that Purim, I was in Eretz Yisrael with a bunch of friends in Israel celebrating Purim. It really hit me hard today. I was sitting at my desk like dumbfounded. Like, oh my gosh, look at this. Now by accident I see these pictures. Going through all of them and the things I was doing. Just to encapsulate everything. Just to show us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even though, if I ask you right now, some of you might know the answer, some might be surprised. How many times is God's name mentioned in Megillat Esther? None. However, when you read the story and you see everything that happened in the story, you see that who's running the show? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show, but His name is not there. Because Hashem said, there will come a time I will hide my face from you. You have to look for me. You have to find me. You're not going to see me directly there, but I'm right there. And in fact, just to show you how far in advance everything that happened on Purim was planned, I'm going to give you something great to go home with. Is Purim hinted to in the Torah? How is it hinted to in the Torah? Well, according to, there are what we call Torah codes. The Torah has codes, numerical codes. There's computer programs today that actually find these codes, and there's messages in the Torah about everything that has happened ever in history. If I ask you, how many letters are in the Megillah from the beginning to the end? How many would you say? How many letters? How many letters in the entire Megillah from the beginning to the end? 12,196 letters. From the beginning, what were you going to say? You are wrong. That's what you asked for it. 12,196 letters from the beginning of Megillat Esther to the end. Now, listen to this. You want to know that Purim was planned so far in advance? If you count, take the first aleph of Bereshit. The word Bereshit, for the beginning, has an aleph in it. Take that first aleph, count from that aleph 12,196 letters. You know what you're going to reach? A samech. Count from that samech in the Torah, 12,196 letters. You're going to get to a taf. From that taf, count another 12,196 letters. You're going to get to a resh. Spells out Esther. Megillat Esther has 12,196 letters. In the Torah, you count from the first aleph, 12,196 intervals, and you find the name Esther in the Torah. All it takes is somebody to look from 2 steps back. If you want to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu running the world, this is how you see it. If you thought Megillat Esther or the story of Purim happened a little over 2,000 years ago in Persia, you'd be wrong. It happened way before, when Moshe Rabbeinu was writing the first Torah scroll at Mount Sinai. And implanted in there is the word Esther. And Esther HaMalka, the prophetess that she was, made sure to put that hint in there. And there's so many more like that. So I guess, finishing off tonight, my message to everyone would be that just like in Megillat Esther today, we see so clearly that Hashem was there every step of the way, so clearly. Hashem is with us everywhere we go, very clearly. We just have to look at the right places. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.